Oh hey, welcome guys, it's me, Red. And I'm biggity backer than piggyback, I'm backity back, yo. Sorry, anyways, you already know what to expect. I terminated fired the news guy because he wasn't funny enough, and today we're playing with balls. Can somebody get him, please? Somebody? Anybody?
Katamari Damacy.
So Katamari Damacy, it's a game that originally came out on the PS2, developed and published by Namco, and it was the first game made by creator Keita Takahashi. He also served as this game's director, wanting to become more than just another artist at Namco. And damn, talk about first impressions. It didn't just fall in his lap, however, he actually had to fight for this game's right to exist. And when he finally got the green light, Namco Digital Hollywood Game Library, whatever that is, only gave him a little under $1 million. So Takahashi and his team really had to make their dollars stretch as far as it could. And boy did those dollars stretch, because this is one of the most creative, unique, and most importantly fun games to ever hit the PlayStation 2. Now, even though this didn't meet Capcom's initial sales expectations, and they wanted it to sell 500,000 copies in its first year, it still managed to sell over 100,000 in that same time, and hit number 9 on the best-selling games of the week chart when it came out. This is impressive for a new IP of that scale, so Namco decided to keep making games, and the series grew more and more, much like the Katamari's you roll. This game gave birth to a franchise that's still living a long and happy life. I mean, there was a good first game, it got better, it got worse, then they started remaking the games. Google made their own version if you search up Katamari Damacy, but today I'll be looking at the first game, specifically the PS2 version, because the remake doesn't really change anything beyond graphics, and I already own the PS2 version. Fun fact, this is also the only version with an official English dub. Now of course you can mod it into the remake, but that's not official. And trust me, this dub is just amazing.
Come along, it's time to go.
Okay.
This game starts off with the King of all Cosmos dabbling in a little drunk flying, which results in him swerving dangerously throughout space, having multiple head-on collisions with almost every major celestial body, including the moon. Which means on top of senselessly murdering millions of grays throughout the universe, the sky is now empty with no stars to gaze at. Like any good father, he decides to push this on his son, the prince, and that's who you play as. Now this guy's real dad of the year material. Not only does he make fun of the prince and call him names, but he doesn't even look you in the face. And you're just this tiny little fuck who's like way down here, and he's way up in space, and he's huge, and you're just stuck with the world's most uncomfortable view of Mount Boner. So this game is basically just you cleaning up your father's mess he made in a drunken stupor. But how exactly do you put stars in the sky? Basically, you just have to roll up a bunch of stuff in this weird sticky ball thing called a Katamari. Now, Katamari is Japanese for clump, and Damacy, the second word in the title, is a play on the word Tamashi, which means soul. So technically in English this would be called lump souls, the dark souls of lump rolling games. Basically, you use the adhesive strength of this Katamari to pick up anything smaller than you, but if something bigger than you hits it, you'll lose some items. With this knowledge, you are then tasked to go out and pick up anything and everything you can. Pins, coins, dogs, small children, people, every country in the entire world. It can get pretty morbid if you think about it for too long. Just a giant rolling ball of meat with people inside screaming for help. The game has around 20 levels, with about half of them taking up the main missions, which range from make a star 1 to make the moon. These missions are all about rolling the biggest Katamari in whatever time you're given. The other levels are side missions, which normally have you doing things like making constellations, which are kind of like challenge missions. These constellations will have you do different types of challenges other than just rolling the biggest Katamari, like getting as many crabs as you can, getting as many pairs of something. There's constellations where you can't roll up certain items, there's one where you have to guess how big your Katamari is and submit it once you think you've hit that size. There's even a mission where you have to roll up as many girls as you can. Ooh. hardest missions by far in my opinion are Make Ursa Major and Make Taurus, both of which revolve around you trying to do exactly that. Basically you have infinite time to make the Katamari as big as you want, but in Ursa Major you have to avoid anything bear related, and in Make Taurus you have to avoid anything cow related. And I mean anything. Rolling up anything relating to these two animals in either of their respective missions will cause you to submit your Katamari. Basically just make Katamari big, then pick up item when you're done. Or if you're me, the first thing you pick up will be something that just instantly ends the run. This definitely isn't a super hardcore, epic Dark Souls difficulty game, but some of these levels can be pretty hard to do good in. Other than that, this game's super chill, it's relaxing, it's got this laid back atmosphere, the timed missions don't ever feel like you're being rushed, and the music is so good you'll probably be playing through some of these levels just to listen to the soundtrack. Speaking of the music in this game, can we just take a moment to appreciate how good it is? The soundtrack was mostly composed by Yu Miyake. Him and the other composers had a pretty unorthodox way of making the music for this game. Miyake wanted the actual artists on this soundtrack to be people who were popular in Japan at one point in time, but nobody had heard from for a while, or they had faded into obscurity for whatever reason. They then wrote the lyrics first and matched the lyrics up with the artists they had based on how well they felt each artist would gel with the lyrics. And finally, after recording the vocal track, the instrumental would be built around it. The team wanted to make music that would appeal to a broad spectrum of people that was familiar but not trendy. This is obvious in tracks like the main menu theme, in which it's just Miyake humming a theme that he thought would be memorable. While it was originally meant to be used as just a sample to build off of, kinda like a reference track, the rest of the team liked it so much and thought he should just keep it in as is that he did. I think the game's soundtrack is much better for it. Stuff like this makes it feel like you're just a kid hanging out with your friends on a sunny day, goofing around. In the end, it resulted in a soundtrack that's super diverse, catchy, and unique as can be. I mean, the soundtrack's got samba, it's got jazz, it's poppy, it's funky, it's EDM-y. The soundtrack also matches the feel of the levels really well, and the different scenarios you'll be rolling through. With a ton of blinking you'll miss it sight gags to enjoy, like picking up an invisible man, or rolling through an entire graduation ceremony, or a judo contest. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. When it comes to the actual gameplay and the amount of levels, this game is the epitome of less is more, because even though there are only 3 maps, referred to as the house, the town, and you're always approaching each level differently. You'll start in a different part of the map, or at a different size, having to avoid different obstacles. Most of the stuff you could pick up varies from mission to mission. This allows you to really study each map throughout the game. Doing a level in one part of the map only helps you on the next level when you have to go through that part again. Except this time you're running around with the giant 200-meter death ball.
Behold my Katamari, you are powerless against its wrath. This is your god now.
And man, does rolling Katamari never get old. Watching it just grow and grow and grow. You'll go from being hit by cars to picking up the cars, and then picking up the garage the car is parked in, then picking up the piece of land that garage was built on. It's the perfect middle ground between total zen and an absolute power trip. Controlling the Katamari can take a while to get used to, but after the first level or two you start to wrap your head around it. You essentially just move around using the 2 analog sticks. This is meant to kinda emulate the feel of each of the prince's arms pushing the Katamari. Moving forward, backward, strafing is all done just by holding both analog sticks in the same direction, whether that be forward, backwards, or sideways. Holding the sticks in opposite directions will have you turn either left or right depending on which way you're going. There's also this really useful U-turn move you can do by clicking both of the sticks in. This comes in handy as an emergency U-turn, and I end up using it a lot throughout my playthrough. And then there's the boost, which you can do by shaking both analog sticks in random directions, or at least that's what it says, but I can hardly get it to work. It's definitely useful when it does work, but it doesn't half the time. That and the thing where you're supposed to be able to hold forward on a ledge to climb up it occasionally works, but for the most part, Trying to use these moves and not having them work when the level is almost over and you're just trying to get that last little bit of girth can be pretty frustrating sometimes. After rolling around but not at the speed of sound, your absentee king father takes you back home with his magical rainbow vomit. He then takes an opportunity to tell you how you did with your Katamari, and in classic dad fashion, no matter how good you do, he will always have something to complain about. He also tells you the top 3 types of items that your Katamari is made out of, so that's pretty cool. And what's really cool is if you complete the target size fast enough, he'll give you some actual praise and a free comet for being a speedy little stinker. This game actually has a surprising amount of bonus content and collectibles. You can view all the stuff you come across here on your little home planet. There's the comets, which you get for completing a level's target size in under a certain amount of time, and these can be viewed with all the other stars and constellations you create in this little planetarium area. Getting a comet in each of the main stages allows you to hit a button on the controller that'll make a comet pass by. I love just peeking in here throughout my playthrough just to see the progress I've made and watch the sky fill out with stars. Now, viewing the constellations and comets might be pretty neat, but my favorite type of collectible are the royal presents. You can normally find one hiding in each stage. You see, before you start most levels, the king will sit you down for a second and have a little chat with you. Most of the time, he'll eventually talk about getting you a present, and then something happens, or he just feels bored and throws it away, and you gotta go pick it up. If you can manage to find it, pick it up, and keep it rolled up in your Katamari until the level ends, you get an accessory or a little piece of clothing for the prince to dress up in. Some accessories even have special abilities, like the camera, which lets you take pictures of any level you're wearing it in. You can then save these photos to an album at the end of the level. I love collecting these and customizing the prints and getting them all dripped out. It helps too that there's this little portrait so that you can actually see how the prince is doing throughout the level. He'll even do cute little things like put on a snorkel when you go underwater, or he'll let you know if you've been dashing too much by having an asthma attack. The only other thing you can roll up in this game are your cousins.
Prince.
It's Roman. Let's go bowling.
You can find these funky fellows squirming around most levels, taking part in their own foolishness and other devious shenanigans. You could play as the cousins in the game's multiplayer mode. I haven't played it myself, but it's basically just who can roll up the biggest Katamari. It's such a shame you can't play as any of the cousins during the single player missions, because the cousins have such creative designs and they stand out from each other in a cool way. Like Johnson. I love Johnson, but whether it's Johnson or the prince himself, somebody's gonna have to roll up stars for the night sky. And there seems to be this random family caught up in the middle of all this. But I'll take a look at that when I get back. So, like I already said, the king of all cosmos has drunk flown into every single star ever, and then he pushes the cleanup on his son, the prince, who you play as. However, throughout the main missions, the game will check in on this Earth family of what I'm assuming to be humans. This is the Hoshino family, with the father being an astronaut. The whole family plot revolves around the kids and their mother going to see the father launch into space. Before they leave though, the kids catch a breaking news bulletin saying the stars are missing from the sky. Before they get in the car, the son tries to tell the mother that there are no stars in the sky, only for her to say that's not true, even though that was a news bulletin that just came on the TV 5 seconds ago. They then pile into a taxi to go visit the father during his launch, only to realize when they get there that there is no launch. It's been cancelled due to the fact that there is no moon to land on. This leads nicely into the final level, Make the Moon. Making the moon and beating the game reveals that the family was actually rolled up on the Katamari used to make the moon.
Wow.
So the dad did get to go to the moon. There are a bunch of different versions of this cutscene depending on how much of the game you've completed, like one that shows how you're a potential murderer for throwing this entire family up into space without any spacesuits.
The air sure is thin out here in space.
Either that, or as I theorize, they're actually aliens. I mean, look at the daughter. She has this weird psychic connection to all the constellations and knows whenever you put one up the moment it happens. That's weird.
Cancer came scuttling back.
Oh shit, now it's just tragic, I'm sorry. It's a lighthearted, fun story that's not too heavy, and basically just serves as an excuse to touch things with your ball. It's just a shame that this is the only version of the only game to ever get an English dub. Normally I wouldn't really care too much about something like this, but I mean, you're telling me we don't deserve another Katamari game with that level of quality? That emotional, thoughtful voice acting? I truly believe that Katamari Damacy, especially back in 2004, is an impressive game from every angle. The team were able to use shortcuts like loading in big items and unloading small items when you get to certain sizes, or only rendering the outer layer of the Katamari while the inner parts are constantly unloaded and swapped with just a bigger Katamari. It may not sound like much by today's standards, but for a PS2 game this was not only essential to make the game work, but also to keep it running without any major stuttering, which is impressive. It shows the developers knew the hardware well and were able to take advantage of it, making a game that otherwise wouldn't exist. Keita Takahashi had to fight for this game to exist, only to get about 1/10 of the budget other Namco titles get. The team had to fight the hardware it was made for, and it all resulted in a game that's still fun and addicting nowadays, that still stands out and holds up. It does suck it didn't meet its sales expectations whenever it came out, but it still sold well. In 2018, Katamari Damacy Reroll was released. It's essentially just a remaster for modern platforms, and I highly recommend it if you want to check the game out. It's the same game and it doesn't have the amazing English voice acting, but it looks amazing. While I was making this video, I actually picked up the remaster for the game's sequel, We Love Katamari, and I gotta say, it's really good. This version actually adds 5 new levels, which are basically challenge levels. They dress it all up as a flashback, where you play as the king of all cosmos, training to be the king. It's really cool, and the more I dive into that, the more I want to make a video on it, so who knows, maybe that'll happen soon. As for this game, the game that followed the series, you could just feel the passion and creativity oozing out of it. Like a large sweaty father out cutting his lawn without a shirt on a hot summer day. Or like how I get your mom to ooze for me in the bedroom. What I'm saying is this game is creative. So creative you can feel it the moment you turn it on. The Katamari beatbox, rolling up the Namco logo to choose your save, and that wacky ass intro movie all help give this game character. It helps this game stand out in what I think is a good way. All that mixed with some seriously satisfying and addicting gameplay and a fantastic soundtrack makes it no wonder how this game could go on to be so influential. I mean, they even made it on Google. Fucking Google. With all that said, I really do hope that these remasters are a sign of new games to come. I mean, the We Love Katamari remaster came out at the beginning of last month, so there's always hope. Until then, we always have these older games to revisit and appreciate. I do wonder though, after rolling up the entire world, can the prince roll up a good doink?
It's up to you. Do you want to continue or no?
Mr. Yoshida, this way, please.
Okay.
Excuse me, sir. Roll around, collect, and grow. Katamari Damacy.
PlayStation. 体感雪だるま式塊魂
From the prehistoric past and the limitless future comes Roboraptor, fluid biomechanical motion, and 3 programmable behavior modes.